Welcome to a very important video. Maybe it is not an onboard today, but we're going to talk about what makes or breaks a good lap. Brakes or tires are essential components, but quite often you hear me praise or complain about cars' alignment. And today we're going to nerd you out about camber, caster toe, how to set up the car. But first, we are going to install some important goodies that will allow us more flexibility in the cars of today, the 992 GT3 and G82 M4. Quick reminder, here at Vulcan Alpha, you are able to get your car set up, and from today on, you also will be able to get Suspension Secrets goodies installed. Yep. Matt, who are you? What is Suspension Secrets and what are we going to do today?
Yeah, of course. So in a nutshell, I'm Matt from Suspension Secrets. We are an aftermarket car part designer and manufacturer, basically focusing on BMW, Porsche and supercar, which is perfect for today. Today we're going to be installing our full kinematics kit to this G82 M4 just to finish off an already pretty awesome package. And then we're going to be fitting our full 992 track pack to the 992 GT3 next to us and get that again ready and set up for the Nürburgring.
Yeah, well, let's get cracking. Matt, what have you brought for us for the GT3?
So this is our Suspension Secrets 992 track pack, we call this. So this is effectively a mix of components that just unlocks extra potential from this chassis, and it also walks us up closer to GT3 RS potential as well. So it starts off at the front here, so we've got our camber blocks. Okay. So these are a block that replicate the OEM part in the front hub. So on these cars, they're double wishbone. They're not McPherson strut like the 991s. So they adjust their camber using this component. So the upper wishbone mounts to the hub using this, but ours is made differently so we can get even more camber at the front axle.
How much camber can you get on the stock suspension?
The standard is 2.8, okay. With our kit up to 4 degrees.
So that's like race car levels.
Exactly, yeah. So it gives you that new window of adjustment, so you're not limited to 2.8. So if you're running a more grippy tire like a Cup 2R or Trofeo RS, you want to be in like the mid to low 3s. If you're going right up to a slick, you want to be getting the high 3s up to 4. So it just gives you that adjustment potential, basically.
Without needing like an aftermarket suspension with camber top mounts, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That part alone can save your front tyres because, I mean, you've probably seen it 1,000 times, stripping the outside edges because there's not enough camber present. Yes. So when you're using the tyre to its maximum effect, not only are you getting more grip, less understeer, and therefore it's faster and safer, you're saving on tyres as well. So it's a real win-win product. The grippier the tyre, the more camber you need as well. Yeah. So people often think, obviously, just chucking grippy tyres on the cars is the solution, but that can actually make it lean even more onto the outside edge and you get even less tyre in contact with the ground. So it can actually increase the problem.
Yes.
So yeah, you need to match the camber to the tyre. So these are the rear upper monoballs. So these go in the rear upper control arms on the GT3. So at the back, we have 4 upper control arms and they all have rubber bushes in. So you've got 8 rubber bushes per side. And as you're going around track, they're flexing and they're moving around. So if you increase aerodynamic downforce, like with the Vulcan stuff as well, they're going to flex even more because you're putting even more grip into the tyre. Therefore, more force goes through those arms and flexes those bushes. The faster you go as well, the more they're going to flex. So out on track, I mean, the faster you're going around the Nürburgring, the less you want movement in your suspension. So monoballing them keeps it really stable, and that's what we're looking for really with this product is stability and confidence in the chassis. So the faster you push, it still feels stable, you have confidence, therefore you can push harder, and it's safer as well to drive on the limit. The 992 GT3 RS is completely monoballed as standard. So this product effectively lets us get the GT3 chassis up towards GT3 RS level in terms of that rigidity and stability. So a really nice upgrade just to get that confidence in the rear end and just, again, get grippier tyres on there and it not over-flex the bushes because ultimately it's a road GT car, so the more you make it more track focused, you need to start upgrading the hardware as well.
And also when the stock components is out of its life cycle, basically, and especially now that the Gen 1 of a 992 is becoming like older, people might be upgrading for this. You can pick one up for less money. It could be interesting to definitely upgrade these because the stock bushings become just like way too soft.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Then we have a couple of toe arms.
Yes, so these are again for the front axle. So this is a bump steer tire end. So when you lower the Porsches on the 992 and the 991s in particular, they get bump steer into them. So that's effectively where when the wheel goes up, the toe changes. So the way you feel that mainly on a Porsche, and a lot of our customers experience this sensation on track and don't know what it is when you're going into a corner, it's not necessarily bumpy, but as the chassis starts to physically load over and you load this wheel on the outside and the inside one droops, the bump steer actually starts steering away from the corner. So as you turn in, and the car loads, you actually need to turn in again to get it dialed in. It feels like understeer, but it's not. It's the bump steer turning back away. So when you lower the car, that gets worse. So we can dial it out with this effectively. So we can use the shims at the rose joint end, and we can shim that back down to its OEM position at the lower ride height. So when we turn that wheel in, you can keep that position on the steering wheel and it'll hold the same arc. As the car changes on its load, you can just keep the steering wheel the same. So from your perspective as a driver, so much smoother and cleaner. So you're not constantly chopping at the steering wheel.
What's in here?
So that is camber shims.
Can I open it?
Yeah, of course you can, yeah. So
we're going to install it, of course I can open it.
So that's for the rear axle. So obviously at the front, we've solved camber with the camber blocks. The rear axle, we can use shims. If we just need to increase past what we can get with the OEM adjuster bolt. So there's a huge range of shims there. So we've got plenty of options and more than enough for any camber level we're ever going to see, basically.
So with these, we can get like 4+ degrees.
Yep.
How much can we get with this?
So, I mean, the sky's the limit with the shim. As long as you could easily get up to -4 on the back as well if you wanted.
Yeah.
We're not going to go that high, but there's just more than enough there for anything we're going to encounter. Different thicknesses so we can fine tune as well, beyond the limits of the OEM eccentric bolt at the rear.
Nice, and they're all like different thickness as well, so you have like, lots of adjustability level.
Yeah, so we can just fine tune even on each side at the same time as well, so we can make quick adjustments as well if we need to.
Before we proceed with the install, I want to say massive thank you to our friends at TrackSpeed for giving us the car to install Suspension Secrets Upgrades. You can rent a huge variety of cars, including this GT3, or also big variety of hot hatches, other Porsches, BMWs, including Vulcan Alpha upgrades. But in addition, they also have their own workshop and they can do also alignment for you. In fact, they have been doing all the alignments on our own personal cars until we open up our workshop. So we definitely trust them with our cars and our lives. So massive thank you. So let's get cracking. You may all wonder why you saw our taxi car, the DOT1, and here we have the DOT2. Because we had the very best intentions to fit everything on the DOT2 under the assumption that everything is going to fit from the DOT1 kit, because not much has been changed on the car, but as you can see, actually some things have been changed on the car. So the camber block fits.
Yep, camber block fits.
The bushings
rear monoballs fit perfectly. Yep.
But
the bumps and turret ends are different on this car, so they've actually changed the taper and the whole nut and bolt assembly on the actual end. So they've made it stronger is what they've done, but they've changed this entire hub end assembly. So the taper inside the hub is a lot longer and a bit thinner, but it means it's got more engagement, so more surface area, so it's technically stronger, but ultimately it is different. So our part won't fit the DOT2 right now, so we're going to have to remanufacture the inserts to suit the DOT2 effectively.
Yeah, so luckily we have a DOT1 car available, which is also our taxi car, which is great because now you guys can also feel the difference much more yourself. So yeah, this goes back together in stock, realigned, goes to TrackSpeed. We go pick up that one and start the assembly all over again. But luckily, didn't lose much time.
No, not much at all.
Just like less than half an hour probably.
Yeah, so far.
So let's go. We're just being transparent, want to show you guys that small things happen and also what changes have been done to the DOT2 platform. So let's get this right.
So we've just taken the front tyre off the Porsche, and when this came in, it was actually already set up to a degree, so the front camber blocks had been maxed with the stock alignment, so it had as much camber as you can get out of the stock system. And looking at the tyre as it's come off, you can see that the outside edge there is still worn an awful lot more than the inside and central sections. So this is a real visual display that the car needs more camber on the front axle, and that is where these camber blocks come in. It allows us to get past the stock restraints, so we can go up into the 3 degrees and up towards 4 if we need to, so we can get this contact patch fully optimized, because what we're looking for is this tyre to come off with a really nice even wear pattern after a good few laps, so we know we're optimizing as much grip as physically possible, getting as much out of that tyre, and we're not prematurely killing them and replacing them before they're required.
I'm just quickly gonna jump in here because it's a kind of exciting bit for me, because I was very excited to get this twin bush press, and now it comes in very handy because we had to press out the stock bushings here and here. Sometimes when you do not have a press, people end up like heating them up with a fire thing, with a torch, and then or putting them in the freezer and then putting the other thing in the oven and then with the heat expansion, blah blah blah. It is much easier when you have a press, and in this case we can do a very easy install. So whether you want us to install suspension secret bushings or any other stuff, we have a press in-house. And yeah, so the guys have already taken out the original rubber bushings, and the other one, the suspension secret one, is being now currently pressed, and we can now actually see very nice up close the main difference. So yeah. The 992 GT3 is done, and it is already now on the alignment tables. So while alignment is getting done there, let's talk you guys through what we, or you, will be doing on the G82. So what do we have here?
So this is what we call our full Suspension Secrets kinematics kit for the G82 M4. So this is the kit that we've made when the car already has coilovers fitted with adjustable top mounts, which this one has. It's got the motor on 3-ways fitted. So with a car like that, this is the rest of the kit you need to make it basically an absolute beast out on track, unlock all the adjustment you need and get rid of all the rubber bushes.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So let's get started then. That's a eccentric bush?
Yep, so this is a front caster bush. So this goes in the front lower control arm, and in there as standard, there's a big rubber bush, and under heavy braking, that moves around, flexes.
Lots of pitch.
Yeah, it changes your toe angle, so it gives a bit of wiggle in the steering wheel. So this solid bush removes that rubber bush and replaces it, and so under heavy braking, a lot more stability. On turning, a lot more sort of directional stability as well. But what it also does is it has an off-center bearing fixed in at an exact position. So when that's pressed in the correct orientation, it increases the caster at the front axle too. So more stability in a straight line in terms of the steering wheel wanting to stay nice and straight at really high speeds, which this is going to be doing. But more importantly, through the corners, you're going to get the weight back through the steering wheel, and you're going to get the dynamic camber gain. So as you turn in the wheel, the outside wheel is going to increase in camber more than it otherwise would. So it means we can run less static camber, so better braking traction, but through the corner, we're getting more negative camber to lean onto. So it's a real win-win thing that when you get caster into the BMW.
Nice, 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 nice. And for that, of course, you will also need a press to press the old ones in.
Yeah, we'll be using your massive shot press there. Yeah. We'll be using that today. This is a rear traction arm. So this goes at the rear axle at the bottom, and it effectively, we set the length on this arm to a very specific length at the back axle, and when doing that, it alters the kinematics of the rear. So that's why it's called a kinematics kit. So what that does is when we change the length of that arm, it alters its arc pattern under compression. So basically, when you're on throttle and the rear goes into squat, that changes its arc pattern in a way that rotates the hub very slightly forward and down. So it physically pushes the leading edge of the tyre into the ground when you're on the gas, so gives traction. So that's a really cool product because it unlocks more mechanical grip at the rear axle.
That's nice, and it's very, very important for a rear-wheel driven car because this is an S-drive or the rear-wheel drive car, not the X-drive. This looks like a front.
That's a rear camber arm. Yes, so
I almost had it.
Yeah, so it's actually a similar length to the front lower control arm, and it also does camber, which the front one would do. So yeah, similar looking thing. So this goes at the top at the back axle. So there's 4 arms at the top, which are camber arms. This is one of them, and it's got the machined banana shape in. So this means we can run the car really low, and we don't risk any arm to body contact issues. So we've machined that curve in there, so we can go super, super low at the back, and it's just never going to get close to anything. And it just basically allows us to adjust the camber far beyond what we can with the standard adjusters. And it also removes the rubber bushes from the OEM arm because we've got solid rose joints at both ends. So it reduces that flex. I mean, when you're running even more aero like you are in this car, the more aero means more grip in the compound, which means more force through the suspension arms, which would mean more deflection in the rubber bush. So with a solid bush, there's no deflection. So you're keeping that geometry that we're going to set really consistent around track.
Very nice, very nice. This is the front.
Rear again, yeah, so this is all rear now. So the front doesn't have a lot going on really. You've got the front's already got the camber plate on the coilover, so we can do a lot with that. So this is a rear toe arm. So this again, similar to the other arms, replaces otherwise rubber bushes that are in the standard arm for the deflection reasons. But again, it also unlocks more adjustment capability. So with the camber arms and toe arms as standard, when you run like a serious amount of rear camber, you just cannot get toe in anymore with the stock adjusters. So you need an adjustable toe arm to get the toe settings you're looking for. So with these arms fitted, we basically have zero limitations in achieving the setup we want to achieve.
Nice. And then
so the final one, the insert might slide out the bottom on that one. So that is a solid rear control arm bush, basically. So in there we've got a spherical bearing. So again, that as standard, the whole thing in your hand right now would be a rubber bush. Similar to the 992 when we monoballed it, similar sort of thing. This just replaces the big rubber bush that the lower coffin arm mounts to, purely for deflection reasons. It just stops that coffin arm moving around under the load to keep the geometry really consistent and stable.
all right, let's get cracking. Let's install it on and do some alignment, and after that, go for a drive. All right, both cars are ready. Suspension Secrets components have been installed and they have been also aligned. And as you can see, both cars are on different setup stands or jacks or jigs. The 992 GT3 is on more traditional string setup, while the G82 is using NP parts and engineering laser alignment system. So we'll talk about the differences between the two, the values that I've put to the car. But first, maybe for people, let's explain what is camber, what is rake, what is caster, toe, and everything, because whenever I speak about those facts that I like or dislike on the car, let's maybe do a quick introduction on these features.
Of course. So bring it right back down to basics. So camber and toe, we'll start there. So camber is when you look at the front of a car and the top of the wheel leans in more than the bottom of the wheel. So that is a negative camber angle. And we're looking for negative. If it's positive, we don't want it round track. So we'll focus on negatives here. Top of the wheel is leaning in more than the bottom. And this means we have a camber angle and gives us more tyres to lean onto through the corner. So if we have no camber and the tyres just completely stood up like this, as we go through a corner, the car is going to lean over as it's going through the corner. It's actually going to roll back off that contact patch. And that's where we get understeer or oversteer, depending which end of the car doesn't have enough camber, basically.
Depending on the car, of course, the traditional setup for a street car is to have more or less like zero camber, because for the tire wear, of course, sportier car already come with a cambers, but very minimal, has to do with the contact patch wear. But when you're going on a track, you're spending more times in the corners, high corners, so you want to have more camber, but not too much, of course, because then you end up being stance nation, and this is completely different kind of purpose.
Yeah, you get the opposite problem.
Yes.
And then, so toe is when we're looking down on the car from the top, we get sort of the wheels are steering effectively. So the best way to think of toe is steering. So if the front of the wheel is pointing outwards, then that's toe out. If the front of the wheel is pointing inwards, that's toe in. And a really nice way to summarize that is toe in gives more stability at the front or the rear, and toe out helps with rotation at the front or the rear. So if we toe out the front axle, we'll get a sharper turn in, but if we toe in the front axle, it'll be more stable at high speed, but a bit slower on the turn in. The back axle, if we toe in the rear, again, more stability and more hesitant to turn. But if we toe out the back axle, it'll be quite quick at the back to turn around on us, bit of oversteer, and it'll be less stable in the straight line too.
Toe out on rear-wheel driven car? Don't. Because then the question is, why did he crash? Well, he went French fries and he should have done pizza. South Park reference. All right, and then actually comes, caster?
Yeah, so caster's a little bit more difficult to sort of envision, but if you're looking at the side of the car, so we're stood at the side of the car looking directly at the wheel. So if we imagine a shock absorber coming out the top of the hub, if we lean that shock absorber back towards the cockpit, then that's going to give us more caster. That's the best way to sort of envision that. Or likewise, if we pull the bottom of the wheel forwards, then that's going to give us more caster as well. And caster is more of a theoretical geometry. It's less physical to actually see, but what it gives us is more stability, and it gives us more stiffness in the steering wheel, is a good way to put it. But the thing we're really interested in, and that's why we focus on it, is it gives us something called dynamic camber gain. So this is where we turn the steering wheel, and as we're turning that steering wheel, the outside wheel is actually going to gain camber dynamically as we get more lock. So that's really important when we're on track, because it means we can run less camber in a straight line, so we can stand that tyre up more like we were talking about before, which gives us better braking traction. But then when we're going through the corner, the caster's going to give us more camber to lean onto the tyre to get more cornering grip. So we get sort of the best of both worlds there. So caster's a really nice little feature we can put in there.
Nice. And then the final one, I think, rake?
Yeah. So rake angle, again, we're going to be doing the same rake angle on both of these cars in the direction, so it's where the nose of the car is lower than the rear of the car. And again, we do this for a few reasons. So one is it gives more mass onto the front tyres, so dynamically it's shifted forwards. So on braking, rather than the car pitching forwards a lot on the brakes, it's already poised forwards, so it just digs into the tyre and gives the weight onto the front so we can turn in and have that grip on the nose. Also, on a rear-wheel drive car, it means that when we get on the throttle, if we started the car with the bum down and the nose up, when we hit the throttle, it's going to lift the nose up even more, and it's going to make the steering really light, which we do not want, especially at the Nürburgring. So if we give that rake angle, when we get on the throttle, it's going to level the chassis out at a maximum, and it's going to keep the car really nice and grippy front and rear. So it's quite a nice touch rake angle.
Nice. Well, let's now talk about the values that we have put to these cars. And before we do that, you can buy the shirt on petrolheart.com. No, seriously. Before we do that, important to mention is the values that we have done are the base values, and later we're going to test out more. Those are the safe values that we, from experience, know are going to work good. And I can tell you, for example, with our race car, the M4 GT4 with Bilstein Team Black Falcon, almost every race we have different values, a bit more camber, more toe, less toe, more rake, to see what works better or worse. And next race we go back to the drawing board. So it's an ongoing development. So before you're gonna comment saying like, you should have done more this, we will figure it out. Like next track day is going to be more or less of this, of that. So, and also important, do not try to copy this setup on your car. If you have a 992 GT3, but different hardware with no suspension secrets parts or different tires, different wheels, you name it, different aero. Every car is different. It's something that works here. Hopefully what we just explained to you, what these values actually mean. It gives you a base understanding, and then it will allow you also to experiment with your own values. So moving to the 992 GT3, our taxi car. Reminder, you can experience this car with me behind the wheel on certain track days. We have only 2 track days left. And next year is going to be 992.2 with your upgrades once we have also
they will fit next time,
and our upgrades. So what have you done to the GT3?
Yeah, so we've set this up with a string alignment system on this car, so a bit more traditional in terms of setup. Something we're more used to working with is the string alignment as well, so we use a different system on the M4. So the numbers we've gone for on this car, based again on what you're looking for, what the tyre is going to give, and what we can get with the hardware. So we've gone from minus 3.4 degrees on the front axle this time. So when this car came in, it was at minus 2.8, and that's as much as it could get. That was in the maximum position, and the outside edge of that tyre was completely worn down, where the rest of the tyre was quite fresh. So it suggested heavily that we need more camber in there. So we've gone up to 3.4, so an additional 0.6 degrees added. So yeah, should give a really nice increase in front end grip, a lot more sort of lateral load carried and less understeer as well. We've also increased the rake angle, so we've brought the nose down even more. And again, that's going to give us what we were talking about before, better braking stability and better throttle response, and a nice firm steering wheel, even on throttle when you're doing corner exit. The rear end, we've gone for minus 2.5 degrees of camber. Again, a nice number we know works well with this tyre. So we're going to start there. And again, we'll monitor the tyre today when you're out on track, and we'll make any adjustments we see fit based on how it's wearing. Yeah,
amazing. Can you maybe quickly run down how the string setup system works in a nutshell?
Sure. So in a nutshell, you need to measure with this kit the track width of the front and the rear of the car. You then set the distance to the rim based on that difference, and then when that is set, you basically have a perfect square around the car. The string then runs from front to rear, and then the angle of the wheel is twisted underneath the string, So you can take a reading at the back on this ruler here, and a reading at the front on this ruler here, and the difference in those numbers, so say we had 55 and 53, would be 2 millimeters different, so that's 2 millimeters of toe. And that's effectively how you measure that, and then you adjust it until you get the settings you're exactly looking for.
Yeah, and then with this you measure the camber.
So this is just an attachment, and we have a separate sort of camber gauge which you put against the rim, and it has a dial on it, and you adjust that until it's level on the dial, and that reads out what camber is present in the wheel.
All right, well, let's get to the more sophisticated system. So we have here the G82. While we were talking about the systems, tell us more, what are the benefits of the laser light
Sure,
system?
so this is the NP parts kit that you've got. So in one bit of kit here, you've got the hub stand, and that does corner weighting, camber and toe all at the same time. So we can effectively have a display, and as we're adjusting one piece of geometry, we can watch how it affects another. So quite a nice way of doing it, and we know it can be really nice accurate. This is also really freshly calibrated, so we know we can rely on those numbers as well, which is really nice. So yeah, really nice bit of kit, and it also means there's no wheel in our way, so we can get to all the adjustable arms really quickly, really easily, and get it all locked off with the alignment rig still attached. So yeah, really neat bit of kit.
Yeah, and it's also a bit more precise because it's digital. You can also corner weight. And it gives you all the values if you want to do the corner weighting. Speaking of corner weighting, what is corner weighting?
Corner weighting. So corner weighting is effectively getting the balance at each tyre as close as we can get. So if you have a car and it's just got things bolted in, obviously the car has an overall mass, let's say 1,500 kilos, and it'll have different amounts of mass present at each tyre, because ultimately the car only touches the floor in 4 places, or it should only touch it in 4 places, but at the bottom of each tyre, that's the contact patch, and that mass is sent through those tyres. But if we have a different amount of mass at each tyre, we get different levels of grip, because if we push down on a tyre harder, it gives more grip. So if we have one tyre that's being pushed less than the other, it's going to have different amounts of grip. So if that's on the back wheels of a rear-wheel drive car and we get on the gas, it could spin one of them up, or it could give the diff a lot of work to do. So we want to get that as close as possible so you get even amounts of grip. And same on the front really for braking. That again, if you have one with a lot more grip than the other, one could lock up. So we don't want that. So we want to get the mass as balanced as possible with the driver sat in the seat as well, because if it's moving, there's a driver in it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go to the next level, because that's the base setup, and then you realize, oh, you know what, we have more aero on the back or less or etc. So we actually need to corner weight it completely differently to compensate for those values. So maybe 50-50 setup is not the ideal case scenario. Maybe you need to even like cross-reference depending also on the track. And this is why setup for one track might be completely horrible for another track. So whenever people bring me their car saying like, oh, I just set it up for my local GP track, mate, like, okay, then I know this is probably, well, I need to be very careful because Nürburgring is a completely different thing. Before we get carried away, what kind of values have you put on the G82 M4?
So with this car, it's a little bit different in the fact that we've got a lot more downforce. So I think it's around 600 maximum kilos of downforce on this car. So to contend with that, we're going to get a lot more grip out of the tyre. We're going to be carrying more cornering speed, more G-force. So the car is going to be physically leaning over more through the corner because we're carrying so much more pace. So in that scenario, we can run more camber because we're going to compensate with that. So we've gone up on this one by 3.6 on the front, and we've gone to 2.6 on the back. So more camber than before, a little bit more than the Porsche setup as well, just to take into account that aero. Rake angle, again, you've got a huge rear wing, but also a split to balance, so we don't have to really compensate for the wing because you've got such a nice balanced aero package. So we can run a more normal rake angle than we would usually run. A little bit less rake than the Porsche because we've got the engine up front this time. So we've already got some weight at the front of the car, so we don't need to compensate too much with rake like we do on the Porsche. So overall, we should be getting quite a lot more traction grip out the car, more cornering speeds, and again, we're going to be monitoring those tyres just to make sure they are working at their most optimum, getting as much grip as we can give you out on track.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Well, it's been already quite a long video, so for the track content, stay tuned for some of the upcoming videos separately with the G82 M4, which is going to give you my first ever lap with the car with a new aero upgrade, suspension secrets parts, and the new setup. So I'm very excited to try it out and push the DRS button on the straight, because we're definitely taking that out on track day, because we've seen it already previously without the aero, the car was already too fast for TF. So track day time with this baby, and I think I would like to take you out in this,
Yeah,
because this is my taxi car, so it's going to be for me a good memory reference, because I'm always driving with a passenger in this car, and then we can maybe have a bit of talk there. So stay tuned. Matt, thank you so much for supplying our cars with great parts. Again, a reminder, you guys can also equip your cars with Suspension Secret parts here at Vulcan Alpha, or you can order directly from them online all over the world. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you here at the Nürburgring. See you then. Thanks for watching, and thanks again also for educating our audience.
Thank you.